A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I had the opportunity to sit down in Sydney with Brett Hocking from APP Corporation. People in construction are not always aware of the wonderful corporate opportunities available in construction management, and I really want people to know and be able to explore the client side of things, all the work that goes in behind the scenes in project management. APP perform a lot of interesting and varied roles in the project and construction management process. And on this week's episode, you'll get to hear about how no day is ever the same working for APP. APP covers a lot of ground. Brett was once upon a time a former boss actually, so it was wonderful to catch up with Brett and walk through their impressive Sydney working spaces. APP has a leading training and graduate program, and I got to hear firsthand about the valuable time and money this national company spends on investing in their people. And it's a real eye-opener, so let's get into it. Brett Hocking from APP Corporation, welcome to Build Hatch.
Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Now, I'm really excited about this one because I have to declare, and I have an interesting story. So you were actually one of my first bosses in construction many years ago. So basically, I was driving around the streets looking for my first job in construction. And once I got into construction management at university, I was dropping off some resumes, which back then, that's what you did. So you drove around town, and I had 5 copies of my resume. I'd also bought a suit, which cost me a lot of money back then. It was oversized. It wasn't custom stitched or anything like that. And I bought some shoes, and I've never forgotten this. They were Aquila shoes. They're about $350, and it felt like $10,000 for me back then. It really hurt. But you had to have good suit, good shoes. So that's what I did. So drove around, knocking on the door, handing my resume around, and I walked upstairs. APP was my last place to drop my resume off on the day. And so what happened was I went up into the lift, and you and Stephen San Lorenzo greeted me and asked me a few questions, said, why not have an interview now? So my lucky last place of potential employment, dropping my resume off, you guys gave me my first start in construction. So
I think your shoes did.
Yeah, it was the shoes, the Aquila shoes, the $350 shoes. But as I said, this is really exciting for me. So former boss and big huncho with APP Corporation. So we're recording this in Sydney, in your North Sydney office. So for our listeners, can you explain what does APP Corporation do?
Well, firstly, thanks for coming in, Aaron. We appreciate it. It's good to have a chat. We haven't seen each other for a long time. So
Very long time.
That has been great. But back to the question, APP Corporation, or just say APP from now on, is a client-side property and infrastructure advisory firm. So we're a consultancy, and we basically help clients come up with a strategy, the definition, deliver and transition property and infrastructure assets. So that's roads, rail, tunnels, hospitals, office buildings, large-scale property work for the government and the private sector.
So these are basically sophisticated projects where typically either a government or a corporate client, they don't have the resources or the experience or the knowledge to manage a project. So they bring in the experts like you guys to come in and manage it on their behalves.
That is it in a nutshell for a large part of what we do. There are some other aspects of it, but and also governments particularly tend to want to feed the industry with work, so they may in some cases have the knowledge or may have the capability, but it's appropriate, particularly during these times that work is distributed.
Absolutely.
Around the industry. Private sector, a bit different. They do it when they either know they don't know what they're doing or know they need more people to do it.
Yes.
Or both.
Now, like all our guests on Build Hatch, we always like to take it back to the beginning, learn a little more about Brett Hocking. So whereabouts did you grow up?
Up on the Northern Beaches, or up in Avalon. I went to a palatial public school up there, called Barrenjoey High School, which was a terrific time in my life. It was great.
Great to grow up in Avalon, like great surf, small area.
For those who know Barrenjoey High School, it literally is on the beach. The back gate is the car park for North Avalon Beach. So we didn't have a football team, we didn't have a cricket team, we just had a big surfing team. It was a lot of fun.
When you weren't at school.
Well, you could be at school. You could just go to the beach or go for a surf at lunchtime.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, there was one instance where I remember that there was enormous surf, a big cyclone swell had come through, and North Avalon holds a good swell very well because it's a rock headland. So there was a whole lot of pro surfers out there, and about 300 people out of the 900-person school were sitting up in the car park and on the bank there watching people surf.
A field trip.
The news helicopters were hanging around, and the teachers, the bell had gone, and they waited 15 or 20 minutes, and virtually no one went down. So the teachers came up and said, right, that's fine, you can stay here till the end of recess. So pretty much the whole school just watched surfing for the morning.
So what was that like?
That was what it was like.
Yeah. So great upbringing, like typical Aussie sort of childhood?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Like,
were you a good
great,
student
great
at school?
parents, a younger brother. I had more ability at school than it turned out I did. There was a bit too much surfing. But no, I was academically good at school.
Like, so growing up and getting towards the end of school life, did you have any idea that you wanted to get into construction?
So a few things. I guess one of the things growing up on the Northern Beaches is that at that time, there was a lot of self-employed people. There wasn't a lot of commuters to the city, certainly not in the circle of friends that my parents' friends hung out with. So I knew a lot of builders, and I liked the idea of construction, and that was always something that did interest me. And towards the end of school, I got a bit of advice, and I thought that engineering would be a good avenue into building, because I knew I wanted to go to university and didn't really contemplate that building was something that you would do at university. So I went to uni for a year and a half at UTS doing civil and structural engineering, and worked out that wasn't for me. Pretty much the telltale sign for me that I was on the path that was unsuited for my personality was we were on the M5 in Sydney was being built, and we went on a site visit for that. So I know a lot of your listeners probably can't contemplate the day when the road wasn't there, but it was a big dirt strip at this point in time. And we had a graduate from the builder, the engineering company that was building it, taking us round. Yeah, and we'd asked him a few questions, and he said, right, I've got a question for you. Why would you be doing the second hardest degree there is to earn the shit money I earn? And I thought, wow, maybe I didn't do my due diligence on this one.
Yeah, I better look into this further.
Better look into this a bit further. Which is not a slight on it. It was just something that made me think about it. And I ended up leaving at the end of the first semester of year two, and took 6 months off and went and worked out of the snow and picked up a serious addiction to winter sports or snow sports, and came back and enrolled myself as a mature age student in what was a Bachelor of Building in Construction Economics, which was UTS's QS degree at the time, because I had done a bit more due diligence and worked out the way into project management. One of the paths was through the QS path. So that's what happened, and I took that on part-time. It was a 5-year degree, part-time, and got a job as a cadet at the Department of Public Works and Services, that's what they were called at the time, as a cadet QS, which was terrific for a couple of years. And then I got a phone call from a recruiter saying that a company called APP was interested. And that was good. That was almost exactly 24 years ago that I started with APP as a project engineer in North Sydney. And
I say this in a polite way, but you're now a veteran of APP.
It's not polite, but yes.
So tell me, what does a day in the life of someone working in APP? I mean, there's several divisions, isn't there? Like, tell me, what are the divisions of APP? So,
firstly, what I'd say, and this is one of the reasons that you can do 24 years in the one company, is one of the virtues of what we do is you're always working with different clients. You might get all invested in a project and work with a client for 2 years even. And then you go and start working with another client. So you find out all about how milk is packaged if you're doing and then you work out how hospitals work, and you get to go behind the scenes in police stations, or understand how a dealing floor works in a bank, or trading floor works in a bank. So you get to experience and get to C-suite or boardroom level in so many different businesses, and you get to understand them, and then you move on. So it just doesn't get boring. Is what I found anyway.
Look, and that's part of me wanting to step this podcast up a notch. And I've always, throughout my career, my former career in construction, leading into a bit of mining, and then on the law side as well, I sort of started to think about the corporate options that are available. So if people listening to this in the building construction community, if you sort of talked about, I guess, typecasting a typical day in the life of project management, I think a lot of people tend to think of working for a builder. But I want people to understand and know and be aware there's this entirely corporate career that's available for someone studying construction management or QS or engineering or business or commerce. There's this corporate career
or
in construction.
architecture.
Or architecture.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in a great many. To build on what you were just saying, we run a graduate program, as many businesses do. So once a year we have an intake of graduates, particularly in Sydney, where there's between 5 and 7 a year. Those graduates come from a very diverse background of typically property or infrastructure-based degrees. So they might be planners, they might be architects, they might be landscape architects, builders, civil engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, that sort of thing. And they come in and work with us throughout our divisions, which I'll come back to that you asked me about, for a year before they sort of decide where in the business they'd like to land to progress their career. So there's many, many entry points because of what we do is so diverse. So we do work on big urban development work. We do work on bridges, tunnels, roads. We do work on, as I mentioned before, hospitals or office towers or big apartment blocks. The range of projects is varied, and therefore the skill sets we need are varied. And we think that that diversity in background of education and otherwise just adds to the richness of what is in the business and the richness of the careers that you can develop here.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier about, you can take a career in construction management, but all of a sudden you could be learning with APP on branding and packaging, even events, military, like all these things come to mind.
That's right. We certainly did work with defence, and one of the other things we run is the overlay work or the engineering project management for the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, have done for 10, 12 years, where we, for the client, turn Albert Park into a Formula One track. But the tents and the stands and the safety features and the press areas and all that need to be put together and need to be designed, procured, assembled, taken down and moved somewhere else. So we have a team that works on that 12 months a year and a really big team that works on it for a few months around the event.
Hard to get into in APP. Everyone's jumping over each other to get onto that team.
Yeah, it is a pity that you have to go to the Grand Prix occasionally and stand in a nice part of the stadium and watch the race. Yes, or races as it were.
Now, do you still, like you did with me, do you make your graduates go and onto site and sort of liaise with the builders and get a bit of practical inside knowledge as well and interact with the builders?
Yeah, that's really important. There's 3 really important things for us, for the graduates. Firstly is they understand the commercial process behind the delivery of a project, that they understand how that is a long-winded commercial transaction and it has to be managed the whole way through. So understand how all the time, cost, quality aspects are catalogued, managed and affected by actions. Secondly is the fact that they can get onto site and get a practical understanding of how a building actually goes together and what the phases are on site. And thirdly, that they understand our business and what our business is, and that the relationships they form when they're 22 will be with people who are running the industry in, to quote a number, 24 years' time.
Sure.
And that those relationships matter and they should work on them. That's how we grow a business. So it's that business side, it's the practical side, and it's the commercial transaction. They're the 3 mainstays of what we look for with them.
If you ask me what I could remember as a highlight of working for APP way back then, it was the amount of training and development and career options that are available. And I talk about it regularly on the show because typically real estate agents, they spend quite a lot of money in training and development. It wasn't until I started to reflect on my APP days that you guys invest a lot of time, energy and money into getting your team together to improve the culture and regular training and all sorts of events.
Yes, there's 2 aspects to that. Firstly is the training, but secondly is the team building. Quite often when you do an off-site training exercise and you fly people in from one of the 10 offices around the country to all work together, we get as much out of the fact of the team building, getting the younger group together, getting them to know each other, put names to faces in other offices so they can start to collaborate amongst the business. Almost a secondary benefit is the fact that they can learn some things on the way through and we can start to provide some post-uni context to the way it works. Coming out of uni, everyone's got a vocabulary and a general understanding, but how do those pieces actually pull together to form general professional service, and how do those professional services layer to form a business?
So if I'm a corporate client and I'm interested in approaching APP to say, look, we're rolling out a particular project, we need some help, how does one go about it? Like what's a typical delivery, if you like, if you could pick one project?
Look, it depends on when the clients come to us. The services we offer, and quite often the best outcomes, come from when they come very early in the picture. And quite often what they confront us with is their business problem. They can't make enough widgets, or they can no longer fit their people in their office, or they've won a new contract and they need to have a different facility to be able to deliver it. And we work with them to try and understand what those needs are, what they mean, come up with concepts, different business cases for the different options, and strategize the solution, define what it is, and then ultimately agree with them on what one will proceed with, work with them and a design team that we procure to assemble a design that can get approved by the relevant authorities, and then be completely designed and taken to tender to find a builder who can build that for us.
It's funny, it's not until you actually explain it like that you start to grasp how big a project can go from starting out with, I think we need some bigger office space in the city. All of a sudden, it's
that's right.
ginormous project.
So we also own a real estate firm. So when a company comes to us and said, we're out of office space, they've got the people who can go and find the office space and do the deal on the office space, and then work out what the concept to go in the office space will be. And so yes, it does start at that strategy, can start at that strategy phase. But other times, clients will come to us and say, we've got a DA to build this apartment development. Can you help us take it to tender it, make sure the builder delivers it per principal's project requirements, the design brief. So when we enter, it varies. And in others, so with Randwick Racecourse in Sydney, we helped take that completed new stand there. Well, it's not new now, it was 6 or 7 years ago it was finished, to make it operational. So make sure all the gambling infrastructure was in, to make sure all the seats and chairs and cutlery and knives and forks, and the kitchen had all the cooking stuff in it, the right fences and barricades and storage sheds, and areas for cameras and press rooms are all decked out. So there's also that piece where you're taking a completed building and make it operational. And a really good example is of when a construction contractor, a builder, finishes in a hospital. It's a long way from being able to take patients. So everything from beds to computers to IT to paper in the drawers to processes and procedures and dry runs, and just so far as having toilet paper on the toilet paper roll holders. Like there's a whole lot of work, and it takes months and months and months. So to answer your question, we can come in at any one of those phases and help our clients manage the way through the strategy, definition, delivery or transition of those property and infrastructure assets.
And like you said, you can have a client who says, all right, son, you're going to the side, you're going to manage this project, but that's when huge problems can go wrong and you need the experts to come in and deliver it and report back to the client at times.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's quite often hard to get the toothpaste back in the tube. Once a project goes off the rails, there's a lot of spilt milk, and it's hard to fix. The best projects are where you get it right from the start. Everyone knows their place, everyone knows their role, everyone's making their fair share, not too much, and the thing will go smoothly, and hopefully you get satisfied stakeholders who are ultimately answering that social or business question that they needed. So back to that question is that the government says we're running out of hospital beds. Like the population of Sydney's growing to the west. So how are we going to address that? So
do you guys also do the analysis and reporting, or is it you're engaged to find those people to report back and say, well, look, this is how we need to manage this infrastructure growth?
Yeah, in some cases we work on it, some cases we manage it, some cases we provide the input expertise. It depends a lot on what that particular client does and how their processes work. So when you're looking at hospitals, for instance, and I'll use New South Wales as health infrastructure, they have a very mature process for what they do, and their early part engagement includes the definition of what they're going to do, the business case for it. But there are also others that have the expertise around demographics and so forth that contribute to that business case.
So how many employees does APP have at the moment?
330-ish. I mean, it changes on a daily basis as we hire new people or win new projects, or some people move on to do other things. But it's around 330.
And you mentioned 10 offices, so all around the country.
So mainly the Eastern Seaboard, then Adelaide and Perth.
All right, so what about yourself, Brett? What's your role within APP?
You asked a question before that I didn't fully answer for you, which was about the divisions. So I look after one of our divisions. We've got 4 divisions. They relate to sort of different aspects of the industry. And one of the divisions is infrastructure, which is very much focused on roads, rail, tunnels, bridges, that sort of work. We have a projects division, which is the division that looks after big single projects, so the hospitals and office blocks I was referring to. We have an urban development division, which looks after, not surprisingly, urban development. So if easily described as farmlands are turned into suburbs, or old industrial areas within cities are turned into new suburbs or other parks or science parks or that sort of thing. So urbanising or re-urbanising parts of the city or the outskirts of the city. And the programs division, which I look after, which is all about multiple geographically dispersed smaller projects. So on an ongoing basis where a client says, I've got a program, I want to expand our footprint by 200 branches. So we go and roll out those branches for them. A good example of one that we helped was Aldi, not Aldi the food people, the same but different folk. So we helped them. They turned their old Aldi footprint into their new sort of farmers market looking model, and we helped them with that process. So
That's been quite a big change aesthetically.
It's a very big change aesthetically, and a lot of thought went into it from Aldi's point of view. Very cleverly done, while introducing fresh food at the same time. The project was called Project Fresh. So.
What's your favourite part of your job?
My favourite part by far is seeing, and this becomes more of a thing as you get a bit older, but my favourite part by far is seeing young people kill it. Get in, rip in and grow and do the things and make the changes to their capabilities that are life-changing and quickly grow into very, very, very good and trusted professionals that set themselves on a platform for a good and comfortable life.
Does APP have, besides their graduate program, I remember there was quite a lot of mentoring, whether back then it probably wasn't as formal as what it is now, but some sort of mentoring program?
We have mentoring, but it's more informal. Mentoring's not easily forced. People just grow together and they get a natural affinity, and somebody wants to help and someone's really appreciating their help. It works like that. So there's someone in my team who worked closely with me that I thought I was mentoring, and I got them to do some work on with someone else, and they actually came back and said, I really don't want you mentoring me anymore. I prefer Tim. Which is okay, which is good. That's really good, because it means Tim, who had recently grown through the ranks, is stepping in.
Yeah, and giving back as well. So,
and the best thing anyone in my team could do is make me redundant. That means that they're all
doing a great job.
Doing a great job, and I can go find other stuff for us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of working for a larger company or organisation like APP. Unlike sort of on the smaller end of the construction industry, you get to be around and rub shoulders with other people that you like. So you have that liberty, I guess, to be able to work closely with someone that you get along with, work well with. Whereas some of the things I've seen over the years where it's more fragmented. And I think COVID's proved that you can work remotely, of course, but you still can't be good old-fashioned relationships and one-on-one interaction, can you?
I don't know. When people that have never met start getting engaged and married on Zoom, then I think you can do business on Zoom. It's very much a relationship game, what we do. There are technical aspects to it, and there are perfectly good times when you can work remotely and get a lot of stuff done. But it's a relationship. It's a people game. It's a people business. I heard someone say that if everyone thinks they can work from home, then I can outsource their jobs to India.
Yes.
It's a people business, and you can work from home from time to time. But
yes.
I want to be clear that there's a face-to-face component to it, and we're old-fashioned human beings, and contact matters.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so what does Brett like to do when you're not working for APP?
In those few hours?
Only a couple.
Yeah, no. So, look, I've spent time with my kids is a big one. They were 17 and 14. I genuinely love skiing and snow sports. I spend as much time as I possibly can sliding down the hill in one way or the other. I spent a lot of time doing it when I was younger. I used to snowboard when I was younger. I now ski. But that's what I like doing. I like living on the beach. I like going to the beach. I like surfing. I'm very bad at it. I do like surfing. And I also quite enjoy, I find, building things relaxing. I love to get a tool belt out and a drop saw and just knock up whatever you decided you needed. And just sort of stand there. I find it quite a cerebral thing to stand there with a blank sheet of paper and scratch your head and go, right, I'm going to build a cupboard here. Like, what am I going to need? Or a really nice sort of Hampton-style desk for your daughter, or that sort of thing. I literally start with and have a look a bit online and go down the hardware store and walk around scratching your head a bit. Go, what could I use for the top?
So a bit of project management outside of work as well.
Yeah, I don't know. So my father was a builder, and I did a little bit of work with him, but I never really learned properly. And it just, I felt it sort of some need of some sort of necessary validation to get some sort of competency there. I quite enjoy that too. Now,
we're going to speak to one of the APP grads shortly, so getting a bit of insight about what happens in the day in the life of an APP grad, which will be interesting. So you guys are well renowned for having a pretty solid grad program.
We think we've got a good grad program. It's quite popular. There's been years when we've got 2,000 to 2,500 applications for the 5 roles in Sydney.
Wow.
So don't be disheartened, anyone. It's not like that
it's
now.
High caliber.
Yes, it's not like that now. And we go through quite a unique process, I'd say, to come up with a group of people that have primarily the right attitude and the right aptitude. They're the defining characteristics. And have a little bit of a liking of fun. We like to have a good time as well.
On that, now Brett's brought you in, Peter. So Peter, you work for APP and you started off life with APP as a grad. So tell me a little bit about your role with APP. How did you get into the grad role?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a bit of a different path, I suppose, to most people, obviously starting as a grad, but I originally studied a civil engineering degree. Doing civil engineering, there's sort of a lot of different types of engineering you could go down, and I found myself in a structural engineering role for about 6 months, which was cool, but it wasn't necessarily for me. So, it was me in front of a computer for 9 or 10 hours a day, which I didn't necessarily find super stimulating. So, kept my ear close to the ground on sort of what opportunities were out there. And through a mutual friend, an ex-staff member of APP actually, who's a friend of mine, saw a graduation photo that I posted online, and she got in touch and she said, "Look, do you know much about our company, like the sort of stuff we do? We do project management. If you're interested, you should give me a CV. You should apply." And I said, "Oh, well, that sounds actually great. I'd be very interested in that." So applied for the program, went through the process and was lucky enough to secure a position. And yeah, that's sort of how I found my way into it.
As I said, Brett Hocking dobbed you in, and I'll give you a bit of inside information because I'll tell you what I had to do. Well, I wasn't really a grad. It was my first job, and back then it was just sort of you slot into here and work here and help us out and all that sort of thing. So it's gone a long way, but we had a big project called NIB Private Hospital, and those jobs went on for years and years and years. But Brett sent me up there one day. I'll never forget it. I'm a big guy, like with a pair of shoes on. I'm 6'5", 6'4" otherwise, and he sent me up there to talk to the builder, and I had to give them some bad news. Like I can't even remember what it was. It was something that affected the financial performance of the job. Like it was either saying no to a variation or knocking back part of a progress claim, something like that. And so Brett sent me there, and I didn't recognise what was involved, and so I sort of rocked up, and there's these big angry-looking guys from John Holland's, and these guys just looked at me in my suit and thought, who the hell are you coming, this 18, 19-year-old at the time telling us what to do? And that was where I learnt diversity and being able to speak to people, and I think that probably sums up a lot of APP in terms of no day is ever the same. There's always something different, and it's not like you're a structural engineer and you're dealing with people. And I was talking to Brett earlier about branding and design and all these different realms of construction that you wouldn't normally have that inside information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, what you said really struck a chord with me. Like, you know, you come in as a young guy, whether it's a graduate or an assistant project manager or whatever the title is, you come in and you're dealing with principals of construction companies and principal engineers from civil engineering companies. And, you know, you're the 22, 23-year-old bloke that's got to tell them they're wrong or no, this is what we should do. So it's a bit of a baptism of fire in a sense. But
especially when they say, listen here, son, I've been doing this since before you were born.
Got that plenty. If what I actually struggled with very early on was actually getting responses from people, because I was working on project with, you know, my project director at the time, and I'd always find he'd get responses super quickly and I wouldn't get many responses, which was challenging. But, you know, after a little bit of time, you sort of build that trust and you show people you know you're not a
pushover.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you'll work with them, and you know you're all trying to achieve the same outcome.
Yeah, it's
ultimately
part of working as a team at the end of the day. And to be honest with you, that's probably the greatest learning I think that builders learn, either the hard way or the easy way. But they soon work out that they're better off working with you, because you are the gatekeeper for the corporate client behind the other side of the door. So it's much better and beneficial for them to work with you rather than against you.
Absolutely. And the whole industry, if you really boil it down, it's about relationships. So, you know, your relationship with the builder's relationship with the client, and you know, they're all sort of critical.
All right. Well, Peter, thanks for coming on to Build Hatch. I know you weren't prepared and Brett just dobbed you in, and I look forward to getting this out there. And, you know, I'm sure people listening to this who are contemplating a career in construction management, working for a corporate company such as APP, would get a lot out of it, and particularly the diversity and not having to do the same thing every day. And also encouraging people to come forward if you think you've been to university and you've studied construction management or structural engineering or civil engineering, and you think, where can I fit in to the construction project or my career? Definitely APP is something to consider to be able to, you know, work in a number of different roles.
No, absolutely. You summarised it super well, and no, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. And, you know, like Brett and I had a quick chat just before. If you can't speak about yourself and the path you've gone through, you probably got some problems. So, no, all good.
All right, well done, Peter. At short notice. So thanks for coming on to Build Hatch.
Cool. Thanks very much.
So we're recording this in one of APP's exclusive boardrooms. And I saw it immediately. As soon as I walked into this room, I saw it up on the wall, and there's some black and white framed photographs, but there's one that stands out. It looks like it's all 330-something APP employees. Looks like some sort of retreat. So it's good to see APP is very big on promoting teamwork and a culture of working together and having fun, like you said.
Yeah, that was a pre-COVID celebration.
Of course.
Up in the Sunshine Coast. Where we got the whole business together and have a conference over 2 days and 2 nights, and do a bit of learning, have a bit of fun, some motivational speaking, to be fair, some decent-sized parties, and generally get everyone to, just like we do with the training, to build some camaraderie and a knowledge of each other. And you can see it's palatable, the difference in culture that you get in the weeks and months afterwards as you ride the momentum of everyone having that sort of experience together.
So for the young grads that might be listening to this, or parents out there who have kids that are looking at going into construction and haven't considered this corporate career path being APP, how would one go about it? Like myself, I would not wait until a program comes up. I would actually walk in the door in my...
Yeah, so I was going to say, how you go about it, the first thing you do is buy a good pair of shoes and knock on the door. No, quite seriously, that
you do. You have to go above and beyond.
Yes. For those of you who might be listening who are still studying, we have both undergraduates and graduates, more graduates, and you could easily find our graduate program through contacting through our website, or you can just call 02 9957 6211.
Just pick up the phone.
To the main line in North Sydney and ask for me, and you'll be certainly afforded the right audience. But if you're not in uni and you've been working for a bit, or you've been working as an undergraduate, then just get in contact. Go on our website and get in contact. We are always looking for good people.
What about someone who's maybe not entered the corporate side before, and they're they've worked for a builder in construction management or project management, and same sort of channels, just to
Even more
consider a path in.
New pair of shoes.
Get rid of the boots.
Get rid of the boots. Yeah. No, I just a good portion of the people who work in here started their career with builders. We think that is a good background. There are other great backgrounds as well, but that's a good background, learning the nuts and bolts, as it were, and doing the time on site and understanding the sequencing of trades and the way to manage trades and the way to manage the client from a builder's perspective. That always works well. From our point of view, it's a little bit of a subtler art, what we do. It's more carrot than stick. Construction can be a bit of stick, so it doesn't suit everybody, but it suits a lot of folk. People come to us from working in consultancies, working in architecture firms, working in engineering firms, and want to get to the management side. The joy of what we do is you get involved in everything. You're involved in the engineering design. You're involved in the architectural design. You need to understand how they come together. You're involved in the programming. You're involved in the financials. You see it all.
I'd imagine you know quite a lot of people, like branding, design, interiors, finishes, like
you do.
everything.
You do. You get to know a lot of people, and and not only that, people in the client bodies. If you spend 2.5 years delivering a big project with a client, you don't forget each other. You spilt blood together.
Totally.
It's always a journey, and it's not easy. None of it's easy. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, grit, smarts, and compromise to get projects to work. There are many ways to potentially join APP, but the best way is to pick up the phone. And I encourage that over an email. Emails are easy to ignore. Phone calls aren't.
Well, Brett, it's been really nice. It's been a long time since we've caught up, so I really appreciate you giving up your time, coming on to Build Hatch. Thanks for sharing your story.
Look, my pleasure, and well done on this podcast. I'm well impressed, Aaron.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you having me on, and happy to do it again another day when this goes to the next level.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks again, Brett. Brett Hocking from APP. Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with Brett Hocking from APP Corporation. Like I said at the start, APP's doors are wide open to opportunities, and I encourage you to have a look online and see the incredibly diverse projects that these guys are involved in. A big thank you to Pete from APP also, who Brett managed to bring in and talk about APP's award-winning graduate program. So well done to you, Pete. As usual, please check out our Instagram and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.